What's up everyone, it's Duncan from Overland Journals. Now when you buy an older four-wheel drive like the 80 series I've got, one of the problems you're going to run into is driving lights or headlamps, the factory standard headlights not being bright enough. And there's a couple of ways to try and get them brighter, and one way is to get one of these babies installed. These are LED replacement globes. Welcome back everyone. If you're new to my channel, please hit the subscription button and the notification bell, because my channel is all about sharing my experiences in overlanding with the rest of the community, and I bring out a video every single week. Now, before we dive into today's video, a few things to get out of the way. If you haven't signed up already to the Christmas hamper giveaway, head on over to overland-journals.com and sign up. It's a free sign up, and it's a hamper that gets given away on the 30th of November. It'll be a live streaming session, and entries close on the 25th of November. Details are on the website, so go check that out. If you find the content that I'm creating of use or value to you and you'd like to try and help me out, please head on over to my Patreon's page, link in the description below, and buy me a cup of coffee. You get certain benefits for being a Patreon supporter, all mentioned on the page. Now, let's get on over to today's video. When I bought the 80 series a number of years ago, one of the problems I ran into was headlights not being bright enough. And that's something many of you, if you've got older model 4x4s, will be able to relate to. And that's because, one, age, so the reflectors have aged over time. The kind of technology and designs that go into the reflectors are that many years old, in my case 22 years old, and also over that period of time they fade away. And if a lot of water crossings have been done and water gets into it eventually or invariably, then that also helps in the aging process. So my lights in the 80 were terrible, really bad. So there's the number of ways to try and overcome that. One is to change the reflectors, and that's what I did do. I got myself what are known as Narva freeform reflectors, which you can buy as a set. I bought them and installed them on both sides, and that helped tremendously. Now those are relatively inexpensive. Narva is an Aussie brand. If you're not in Australia, I'm sure you can get similar products in the markets that you're in, and they work very well. But the halogen globes or bulbs that comes with these standard from the factory are still not the brightest you could get. Of course, you've got spotlights and light bars, and that helps, but when you're driving on the blacktop, you cannot use those spotlights all the time. Only if there's no traffic in front of you or oncoming traffic, and you don't want to disrupt their vision by having it on high beam. So when you're on low beam, that halogen globe doesn't really do its job. So another way to do it is to get one of these. These are LED replacement globes, and they're really fantastic because they get really bright. They give you far better, brighter light than the halogen bulbs would do. At the same time, they consume far less current draw compared to a halogen globe. So you think, hey, that's one heck of a way to go, and that's the best way to do it. Well, the problem is, now you can go and buy these from just about any auto parts retailer in Australia, and they will happily sell it to you. Prices will range from about $50 for a pair all the way up to about $150, depending on how much light output you're going to get from it. But the problem is, and I was very tempted to have these LEDs installed, but then I did some research, and then I found out that LED globes are not legal in Australia. Now let me explain that a little bit here. So we get here in Australia, we get what are known as the Australian design rules, and anything you add on to your vehicle in terms of modifications or whatever has to abide by the ADR set regulations. Now when it comes to LED globes, there isn't exactly any set regulations. They have set regulations for LED spotties or spotlights, light bars and so on, but for replacement globes there's nothing really in there. They haven't spelled anything out. So it's a gray area, and you could interpret it in any way you want. It's out for, it's open for interpretation. So one could argue and say, well, if it's not regulated, if it's not in the regulations, then there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean it's illegal. And you could probably say you're right in saying that. On the other hand, the authorities, if they stop you, they could turn around and say, well, it's not regulated, there's no regulation about it, what that means, it's illegal. So it can be interpreted in any which way one sees it. So let's dive into a little bit deeper into the problems that arise with LED globes, replacement globes. And what that means is, when these vehicles came out of the factory, obviously it was halogen bulbs, and the reflectors are designed in such a way that the way the light comes out of the halogen globe, it's reflected in a particular way. Whereas with LED bulbs, the light that's emitted out of the LED bulb is quite different to the way. I'm not going to go into technicalities. I'm not a very technical person myself, but this is what I learned from the research I did, which I'm sharing with you. And the light that's emitted out of an LED bulb is quite different. The way it's emitted, the light pattern is quite different to a halogen bulb. And then in turn, the light that's reflected off into the distance from the reflectors also is quite different. And that can become quite a menace for oncoming vehicles, or even a vehicle that's in front of you. And that's what you don't want to do, because that makes it very dangerous for everybody that's on the road. So unfortunately, there's no regulation. Now, one of the things that has happened is the technology has changed, improved tremendously, and they're continuing to change. And a lot of manufacturers, reputed manufacturers who manufacture replacement LED bulbs, will tell you that they have brought the technology up to an extent that it almost mimics the light that's emitted out of a halogen globe, but just brighter. So in terms of the light pattern, it's very similar, and a lot of manufacturers that I read say that. However, our regulations here in Australia, the ADR, has not kept up with it. I don't think they have done much research into it. And from what I know, ADR relies heavily on what the Europeans bring out. And I don't think either the Europeans haven't got a standard, I haven't bothered to check, or ADR just hasn't caught up with them. So either way, even though manufacturers will tell you technology has improved and they almost mimic the same light pattern and the light the amount of light coming out and the pattern in which it comes out from the LED globe is almost just as good as halogen globe, regulation doesn't seem to recognize it, or there's no regulation. Now, as I said a little earlier in this video, if you go into any retailer, either online, local retailers, online store, or you walk into one, they will happily sell you one of these, and they will not tell you otherwise. Some manufacturers or some retailers that I spoke to, they will kind of put it to you in a different way so that they can cover themselves. What they'll say is LED globes recommended to be used off-road. So if you're off-road, yes, then you're using LED bulbs is all right. But the thing is, what that means is, if you go by what that's being said, then what that means is your vehicle is going to live in off-road all the time, because you're talking about replacing the bulbs that's in your factory-fitted headlights, whether it's low beam or high beam. So they kind of, the retailers or some of the manufacturers, to kind of cover themselves legally, they'll say to be used off-road only. But you and I, we know that that's not practical. It doesn't work that way. So you got to revert back to the ADR, and ADR has no regulations. So technically, these are illegal. There is one other way to do it though, and that is you can get these replacement lights. So the entire unit is LED. You can get those in the market, and that is okay, because the ADR says if it is specifically designed to work on LEDs, then there's absolutely no problem. So as far as replacement bulbs are concerned, no, because that light was never designed or the intention of the design was never to take LED bulbs. However, if the replacement unit is an LED, which you can get in the market, then there's absolutely no problem. So I may go down that route, I'm not sure. At this point, I'm just sharing that information with you. When I do, if I do decide to go and install a complete LED unit, then I'll do another separate video. So hope you found this useful. And if you liked it, please do give it a thumbs up, share it with others who might find it useful. If you got comments, questions, whatever, leave them down below. If you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? You got nothing to lose. Go subscribe. Thanks for watching.